I'm angry about Windows. In this video, without any diagrams or anything, you'll understand everything. I'm going to simplify the issue of Windows. Problem major, the number one cause of our chronic diseases today is related to our lifestyle, which is indoors, while we are made to be outside. I estimate the duration of this video to be about 10 minutes, and you'll understand everything. And even for those who are keen on details, you're going to get scientific details. And for those who aren't scientists, you'll still understand everything. Because every time I use a complicated word, I explain what it is. Who does this concern? It concerns everyone. The people I'm talking about. Modern workers who are forced to work indoors, whether it's remote work or in a building. And even the people, by the way, who are interested in biohacking. Even though I don't like the word biohacking, and those people who think I might buy an infrared panel that will just be an LED sending out a few wavelengths. Sure, it's beneficial, but it's much less beneficial than having the full spectrum of light of the sun. People think that when the sun isn't out, when it's just cloudy, they shouldn't go outside because it's cold. It's complicated and all. If you only knew how vital this spectrum of visible and invisible light provided by the sun is for our physico-chemical processes. And still, even science doesn't yet know how much. Even I don't know. Well, there you go. I don't know how much. But we have some good leads. The problem with Windows? I told you no diagrams because you'll understand, even if you're discovering me with this video. The sun, what does it normally give us if we're not sheltered by a window? The sun gives us light. It gives us visible light and invisible light. I'm going to start with invisible light. We have ultraviolet rays in the shortest wavelengths. So, here are the ultraviolet rays. Ultraviolet rays, we have UVA, UVB, UVC. Here I am again because I ran out of storage space. UVA, UVB, UVC. I'm going to start with UVC because they have the shortest wavelengths. Wavelengths are like the ID card of a light. Waves, really, but of light. UVC rays are normally filtered by the ozone layer as long as it holds up. We're not going to talk about it. UVA and UVB are crucial for our biological clock. For amino acids, for example, tyrosine, which helps produce dopamine. We agree that dopamine is important in our lives. So tyrosine absorbs ultraviolet rays. Tryptophan, it absorbs ultraviolet rays. In fact, some aromatic amino acids absorb ultraviolet rays. Tryptophan produces serotonin and melatonin. I'm not even going to tell you how important this is in this video, because I'm going to keep it concise. Ultraviolet rays help us to be mentally clear. Ultraviolet rays allow us, especially UVB. So, I'm moving on to UVB, which are between 280 and 315 nanometers. Between 280 and 315 nanometers. UVB rays allow us to synthesize vitamin D. Vitamin D, we think of it as just a vitamin like this, like that. Vitamin D is a hormone. Vitamin D allows us to absorb our calcium. Without that, we don't absorb our calcium and phosphorus well. And bone mineralization. Dental health. The immune system for vitamin D, very important. Next, UVA. So that's between 315 and 380 nanometers. Similarly, it's important for our biological clock, mainly, because I've already talked to you about the IPRGC. Intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglion cells. Basically, in the retina, we have cells that tell the conductor of our biological clock, okay, we're seeing light, it's time to be active. If we're not seeing light, it's time to secrete melatonin and sleep. These IPRGCs have a peak sensitivity to blue light. But they are still sensitive to ultraviolet light. Much less sensitive to red light, for example. There, we talked about ultraviolet light. Visible light is between 380 and about 780 nanometers. What is it? Visible light. Imagine a rainbow, it goes from blue to red. So that makes blue, green, yellow. It's simple, blue, green, yellow, orange, red. After Visible light, we don't even realize how important it is. All of that, this visible light. After visible light, we have infrared. Infrared, remember one thing, mitochondria. The wavelength 660, so that's red. Close infrared, 660 nanometers and 880 nanometers, are absorbed by proteins called cytochromes in our mitochondria. What are mitochondria? I've already made a video about it, but here it is. It's so key. Mitochondria are what allow our cells to function, to create energy. All our cells, almost all our cells, except for red blood cells. So, the cells, if we can contract our muscles, it's thanks to the mitochondria. If we can think, it's thanks to the mitochondria. If we can metabolize everything we eat, everything we drink, if you drink alcohol, it's thanks to the mitochondria. If our kidneys work, it's thanks to the mitochondria. Our sexual organs work, it's thanks to the mitochondria. They're everywhere. Mitochondria are between 300 and 1000 per cell. Knowing that we have about 37 trillion cells. So 37 trillion cells, about 300 to 1000. That's a lot of mitochondria in our body. Mitochondria are bacteria, mitochondria. It's one of the ways that life has found to make evolution exist faster. What does that mean? It means that if we evolve too slowly because of our nuclear genome, that is to say the one that's in the nucleus, the DNA. As you know it, the DNA we know. If we're too slow regarding that, we can have a faster effect because there's a much quicker turnover of mitochondria, so we can have a faster effect by using the DNA of the mitochondria. Okay, now, you have all the context. So, why is it important? This thing about mitochondria, for example. When I talk to you about evolution, typically, we can change hair color without having to dye our hair. I literally changed my hair color. Thanks to natural light, the mitochondria, they have, well, I'm not sure. Yes, actually, because hair is made of cells. But I should check if I have mitochondria in my hair. Okay, I prefer to leave that mistake, but we don't have mitochondria in our hair because they are keratinized cells. That is to say, they contain keratin fibers, and in fact, during the keratinization process, they lose intracellular organelles, like mitochondria, for example. On the other hand, the iris, which I'll tell you about in a second, does contain mitochondria. There, you're on it. We can literally change after exposure to natural light, and that's related to the mitochondria. Now, the issue of windows. You have understood UV, visible light, infrared, the problem of windows. Today, we spend hours indoors, while windows block ultraviolet rays and block infrared. Why is this a problem? I talked to you about vitamin D, I talked about dopamine, I talked about serotonin, I talked about biological clocks that are in all our cells. All our cells are designed to function for a while and to go into sleep mode at another time. All our cells. All these cells are called the slave oscillators of the conductor I already told you about. This conductor is the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the hypothalamus. Infrared, mitochondria, which allows us to have energy. This is what allows us to evolve. Mitochondrial health is one of the pillars of anti-aging, actually. If we want aging less is it's by taking an interest in mitochondria. Why do today's windows block infrared and UV? It's, as often, a monetary reason, financial, because it would actually cost too much in air conditioning. Because the sun would hit on the buildings, on the apartments, and as a result it gets too hot in the summer. So instead of putting up shutters, actually we would put up curtains. We would spend too much money on air conditioning. Now, it's almost the end of the video. I'm going to tell you. I'm going to finish by saying what? It's a real problem. In what way? It's a real problem. I haven't even talked about our artificial lighting. I'm just going to say this about artificial lighting. In addition to being disconnected from the sun, we humans believe that we can replicate its light. And as a result, we have these blue lights that, light We have this blue light of artificial origin that you all know, all the LEDs that are on in our offices, your office at home, and everything. And that creates a spike in blue. Okay, nothing new. But so, what's the result of all this? We don't have any V, we don't have infrared, we have a spike of blue. What does that do? That spike of blue, it spikes your cortisol and your ACTH and then your cortisol in your adrenal glands. A spike. What is it? It's a spike. By creating this spike, you're stressed. In itself, cortisol isn't that bad. Because it's normal to have a spike in cortisol in the morning, but now you have access to a spike in cortisol at 6 p.m. You have access to a spike in cortisol at times that are not at all convenient. I'm not even going to talk about the consequences of having too high cortisol levels. So too much cortisol in the blood. Chronically too high. Because this is serious. I don't know if you've seen the side effects. The medications we give to people who are on corticosteroids. Chronically, it's hardcore. So, I'm not even going to talk about that effect, but just from being stressed. Basically, you're stressed. We're stressed when we're indoors, under artificial light, because of the blue light. But on top of being stressed, we're neither energetic nor focused, so we're not performing well. Why? Mitochondria. So there, I'm forgetting about ultraviolet rays, etc. Alright, dopamine and all that, which we don't have when we're indoors, but mitochondria. Our engine, our mitochondria, we don't get them working. And we're being asked to accomplish work indoors. So, we're stressed with cortisol and we don't have what it takes to do this work effectively. Here's the problem with our lifestyle, our way of working today. Last thing about cortisol. There's something called the pregnenolone-Steele syndrome. What does that mean? Side effect of having cortisol, of having spikes of cortisol, of having peaks of cortisol. Actually, and this syndrome means that our gonads and our adrenal glands, where steroidogenesis takes place. In fact, the creation of our sex hormones, so testosterone for men, estrogen and progesterone for women. We get cholesterol when we eat fat at the top. It will produce pregnenolone. Once we reach the pregnenolone stage, there are two possible pathways. Either the one from stress, or the one for sex hormones. Guess which one? The adrenal glands, the gonads, prefer to use when there's a spike in cortisol. They prefer to use the stress pathway, and so our sex hormones are being stolen because of blue light, because of artificial blue light. That's the pregnenolone-Steele syndrome. That's it. End of the video.